Sarah was just 8 years old when her world shattered. Her dad, who had always been the anchor of the family, died suddenly on his way home from work. A heart attack, out of nowhere. The house that once echoed with laughter fell into a heavy, aching silence. And in that silence, a little girl lost her sense of safety. Her mom, Emma, didn't get a chance to grieve. With 3 kids to feed and rent due every month, she had no choice but to hustle. She worked as a janitor during the day and cooked in a school kitchen at night. Sleep became a luxury she couldn't afford. Still, she came home each night with a tired smile, pretending everything was okay. Sarah watched all of this, wide-eyed and silent. She was the oldest, and she knew, no one told her, but she knew, that she had to grow up fast. At just 16, while other kids her age were going to the movies, Sarah got a job at the local coffee shop. She didn't complain. Every dollar she made went toward groceries, school supplies, and helping her mom breathe just a little easier. But behind that quiet strength, she carried a heavy heart. She'd stay up late after work, finishing homework by dim kitchen light, whispering promises to herself. One day, I'll get us out of this. That promise became her fuel. And even though no one around her noticed, Sarah had already started her journey, long before anyone believed in her. Sarah's days were long, but her nights were even longer. After her shift at the coffee shop, while her siblings slept and her mom folded laundry on the couch, Sarah would sit at the kitchen table with a used notebook and an old laptop. She wasn't just doing homework, she was teaching herself German. No one around her understood why she picked that language. But Sarah had a strange feeling it would matter one day. She didn't have a tutor or fancy classes, just free videos, a secondhand dictionary, and relentless curiosity. Every sticky note on her mirror had a new word or phrase. At school, no one really noticed her efforts. Teachers thought she was quiet. Classmates saw her as the coffee girl. But behind that humble label was a girl quietly building something no one could see yet. Options, possibilities. What made it even harder was the loneliness. Sarah didn't have time for friends, parties, or even sleepovers. Her world was narrow, but focused. She'd whisper German words while waiting for the bus. She'd replay lessons in her head while sweeping the cafe floor. Each word she learned felt like a step toward freedom. It wasn't glamorous, but it was powerful. Then came a night she'd never forget. Her mom had fallen asleep on the couch again, exhausted. Sarah looked over at her, wrapped in a faded blanket, and felt something shift inside her. That night, she wrote something on the last page of her notebook. I'll make her rest. I'll make her proud. I'll make all of this mean something. And just like that, her dream stopped being about herself. It became a mission. Little did she know, that mission would lead her exactly where she needed to be. Life had a plan, but it was waiting to see if Sarah was ready. And even though no one saw it yet, she was quietly becoming the kind of person who would shock everyone. All it would take was one opportunity. And when it came, she'd be the only one prepared to take it. It happened on a Thursday afternoon, 3 years after Sarah's first shift at the coffee shop. A friend from school mentioned that a German automotive company had opened a regional office downtown, and they were hiring. Most of the positions were for professionals with college degrees. But one role caught Sarah's attention: executive assistant to the board of directors. The only requirement? Fluency in German. Her heart raced. She wasn't sure she was qualified. She didn't have a degree, just a high school diploma and 3 years of customer service. But she had something no one else around her had. She spoke German, fluently, confidently, and with passion. That night, she stayed up editing her resume, writing a heartfelt cover letter, and rehearsing answers aloud in both English and German. When she arrived for the interview, she felt out of place. Sharp suits, polished shoes, business degrees. Everyone looked like they belonged. Sarah wore her best blouse, slightly faded, and carried a secondhand handbag. But when they called her name and she stepped into the boardroom, everything changed. The moment she greeted the directors in fluent German, the energy in the room shifted. The board was stunned. They weren't expecting anyone, especially not someone so young and unassuming, to speak with such clarity and ease. One of the German executives leaned forward and asked a question in their native tongue, and Sarah answered without hesitation. It wasn't just her words. It was her poise, her confidence, her calm. She wasn't just qualified. She was exactly what they needed. By the time she left the room, the decision had already been made. The next day, Sarah got the call. She was hired. Her mom cried when she heard the news. Her siblings cheered, and Sarah? She just sat there in silence, letting it sink in. She had walked into a room where no one expected her to succeed, and she walked out chosen. And that was just the beginning. Sarah threw herself into the new job with the same fire that had carried her through sleepless nights. She learned fast, worked harder than anyone, and earned the trust of people twice her age. Within a year, she was promoted. 2 years in, she was managing international schedules and sitting in on board meetings. Her life had changed, but she never stopped sending the part of her paycheck home. She moved her family into a safer neighborhood. Her younger brother started college. Her sister got braces she'd waited years for. And Emma, her mother, finally stopped working both jobs. For the first time in decades, she rested. Sarah would come home to find her mom peacefully napping, and every time it filled her chest with warmth. She had done it. She was giving them the life they had always deserved. But just when everything seemed perfect, the ground shifted again. Emma began feeling weak, then dizzy, then short of breath. The doctor's appointment turned into a hospital stay. Then came the diagnosis: leukemia. The word hit Sarah like a punch to the stomach. She didn't cry in front of her mother, but when she got home that night, she collapsed on the kitchen floor in silence. The treatment plan was urgent and expensive. Even with her good salary, Sarah couldn't afford it all. The insurance covered part, but not the specialized medication or the extended hospital care Emma needed. Sarah considered taking out a loan, selling her car, even quitting her job to work too. But deep down, she knew she needed a miracle. And soon. Then, as if fate had been watching, an unexpected opportunity appeared at work. The company's largest European partner was threatening to pull out of a multi-million-dollar deal. The reason? A cultural misunderstanding. The board was in chaos. And someone whispered, "What about Sarah? She speaks their language. She understands how they think." And in that moment, her past, her effort, and her pain finally had a purpose. Sarah didn't hesitate. She studied every detail of the deal, every concern the German partners had, and every cultural nuance that had been missed. Then she crafted a presentation in perfect German, offering not just solutions, but connection. On the day of the meeting, she stood alone in front of the board and the skeptical executives overseas. The room was tense. Her voice? Steady. She spoke not just as a professional, but as someone who understood. She used metaphors rooted in both cultures, gently bridging the gap with clarity and respect. By the time she finished, there was a long silence. Then, one of the German executives nodded slowly and said, "This is the voice we needed all along." Within days, the deal was saved, and the company celebrated a win that few believed possible. The board didn't wait long. That same week, Sarah was offered a new title, a raise, and a sizable performance bonus. But none of that compared to what she did next. She walked into the hospital with a cashier's check and handed it to the front desk without a word. That payment covered the full cost of her mother's treatment, medication, and recovery plan. For the first time, Emma had a real chance. Sarah didn't announce her success. She didn't post it online. Instead, she sat at her mother's bedside, holding her hand, whispering in English and German, reading her favorite books. Day by day, Emma grew stronger. Her hair began to grow back, her laughter returned. And Sarah? She finally let herself breathe. After years of carrying the weight of the world, she had delivered on her promise. What started as a whispered goal over a kitchen table had turned into something greater than she ever imagined. Sarah had been overlooked, underestimated, and dismissed, but she never gave up. She became the voice no one saw coming, and the hero her family desperately needed. And sometimes it's the quietest ones who make the loudest impact. Years later, people still talk about that moment in the boardroom, but Sarah rarely brings it up. What she remembers most isn't the applause or the promotion. It's the look in her mother's eyes when she finally came home from the hospital. That tired, grateful smile, the same one Sarah had seen for years, was now full of peace. And that, more than anything, made it all worth it. Sarah never chased recognition. She chased impact. She chased the feeling of seeing her family safe, her siblings thriving, and her mom alive. And in the end, that was her greatest achievement. Not the title, not the raise, but the life she rebuilt with love, resilience, and a language no one thought she'd ever need. She became the hero of a story no one saw coming. So if you're in a place right now where everything feels impossible, remember Sarah. Remember that every late night study session, every shift you hate, every dream you're quietly building might just be leading to a moment that changes everything. You don't need to have it all figured out. You just need the courage to keep going. And if this story moved you, wait until you hear about the woman who used to sell fruit on the street and was mocked for being just a vendor, until she rose up, built a company from scratch, and became the most powerful businesswoman in her entire region. Her journey is raw, emotional, and unforgettable. Click the video on the left and see how she turned humiliation into empire. Because on this channel, we believe in the people no one believed in. The quiet ones, the overlooked, the underdogs. Because time and time again, they're the ones who rise and remind the world what true strength looks like.